This video shows Dominic addressing his homework noncompliance in therapy. A prolonged exposure protocol is used as the therapist explores the importance of homework while also working with Dominic in finding a more appropriate assignment. This interaction can also be used with other therapies.
Sorry I'm late.
Well, I'm glad you're here. We should probably get started though, because we've got a lot to cover today, and I know that you actually did a lot this past week for homework anyway. Why don't you tell me a little bit about how that went for you?
Yeah, well, I did the breathing, which seemed to help, and I did the reading exercises, but that was about it.
Okay, so that's fantastic that you were able to continue with the breathing and the reading that we had talked about before, and that you continue to find it helpful. I know we were going to add in having you watch the news coverage of the war in Iraq. How did that go?
Well, to be honest, I don't think that was going to help all too much, so I didn't do it.
Okay. So last week when you left, we sort of thought, oh, this would be something to add in. And then what changed between when you left my office last week and sort of sitting down to sort of watch the coverage?
Well, to be honest, I was planning on doing it,
Yeah.
but when I sat down to watch the 6 o'clock news, I just didn't want to do it.
Okay. Can you talk a little more about that?
Well, when I sat down, my hands started to tremble, and I just felt really wrong about watching the news. I just didn't feel comfortable doing it.
Okay. So it felt uncomfortable, your body felt uncomfortable. Were there any thoughts going on in your mind? Any sort of...
Well, I guess you could call it a sense of dread,
Okay.
to be honest.
Okay,
Yeah.
and remind you sort of what you'd been through already. And the feeling was just dread. It just felt awful.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what did you do instead?
I just changed the channel.
Okay. So I wonder if maybe, if you remember how we talked about before, how the only way to sort of get through that feeling is to sort of face it and confront it. Do you remember how we talked about that?
Yeah, well, that was the plan.
Yeah.
I mean, I planned on watching the news, but when the moment came, it was just too much for me to handle.
Too much. Okay, understandable. And I wonder too, we talked about avoidance, this whole idea about how when you avoid the things, avoid your sort of fears, that's what makes it get bigger and feel stronger. That's what keeps your PTSD going. And I wonder that today, you were about 10 minutes late today for therapy. I wonder if maybe there's a part of you that's wanting to avoid therapy too.
Yeah, I guess you could say I didn't want to come today.
Okay. So there might be some of you that's feeling like this is uncomfortable, even just to sit here. It's uncomfortable to look at this, to talk about this. That goes on even here today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm really happy that you actually tried this out, especially because it was so uncomfortable for you. Were there other thoughts that were going on in your mind at that time? Things you were thinking about as you were feeling uncomfortable?
Well, I knew that the pictures that were going to come up would make me almost, I guess you could say, relive what I had gone through.
Okay.
And I didn't want to do that at all.
Yeah. Okay. And it sounds like what you did is really the most normal reaction in the world, really. When you start to feel uncomfortable, when you start to feel that dread, what we do as human beings is want to get away from that. We want to avoid that, run as far away from that as we can. And you did that sort of in that moment by sort of just saying, I'm done, I'm going to change the channel, do something else. Yeah. So in some ways you're taking care of yourself, definitely in the short term. Yeah. So we have to applaud that part of you that wants to sort of get through that moment. But I know we also talked about that the reason you have PTSD symptoms, or the reasons they sort of stick around, is because we just keep avoiding all the things that make us feel afraid, and we don't sort of confront them as much as we should in order to get through them. Did you feel like, do you remember we talked about that?
Yeah, well, I really planned on doing it,
Yeah.
but when the moment came, I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, it was too much.
Yeah.
But you're here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And part of you didn't feel like sort of going through the homework, but you did the breathing and you did the reading. So there's another part of you that's definitely wanting to have things change.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the part of you we want to make stronger. And the way we do that is by trying out different things.
Well, the more I think about it, the more I realize that I just have to confront the problem, and that's what's really driving me on,
Okay.
to be honest.
Well, why don't we take this week by week? You go home, we try out this listening to the news coverage on the radio.
Okay.
If that feels overwhelming and uncomfortable, do something to take care of yourself, like watch something else or call somebody. Would that be something you'd be willing to do?
Yeah, I'm sure I could try it.
Okay. Okay. Great. Because I think we want that voice, the voice that wants to get better, we want to make that voice louder. And the other voice that's like, I can't do this is too much, this is not going to help, we want to sort of talk that voice down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thanks. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week then, and we can talk about it more.